Welcome to the Hmong Peeps Show, the one and only show that brings you ordinary people sharing extraordinary insights. Well, maybe. Here is your host, Chu Effin Lee.
Hey, what's up, folks? This is Chu, and this is the Hmong Peeps Show. What's going on? Have you guys been keeping up with the news about the Baltimore riots? I've been watching it all week, and it's gotten boring. I mean, today it was pretty interesting how the lawyer, the district attorney, I think, for that city came out and pretty much laid it all out, to the public as far as what's happening to the cops that were involved. And I thought that was pretty interesting. As far as entertaining, there's really not much entertainment when you look at these type of situations. It's interesting to see how some people react to injustice, and I think Monday or Tuesday was the most interesting news footages I've ever seen, which is how some folks were looting and burning stores, doing all types of crazy stuff. I've never been in that situation, so it's tough for me to really have any legitimate comment, but just trying to put myself in the shoe of a person of color. Of course, I've experienced injustice due to racial discrimination and prejudice, but I think it's all how we handle it. And for that community, it's not something that they experience every now and then. I'm sure they experience it on a much more frequent basis and for decades. So their built up anger towards the system, to me it's valid, and I get why they do what they do in terms of protest and trying to fight the system. But we have to keep in mind that not all people are crazy like that, who will loot stores within their community, burn businesses, and just cause a lot of violence. There's in every group there's you have your bad apples. Even in our own community, we have our own bad apples. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things turn out. Even though the attorney said that the cops have been charged with murder, the actual end result will be determined, I guess. We'll see how that turns out, and if they do get charged and are sent to jail or prison, then I'm sure people will celebrate. But if it's the other way around, where they are, free from, or those charges are dismissed, then I'm sure there's going to be more violence to come. We'll see. All right, so today I wanted to talk about gifted kids. Yesterday, a friend of mine told me that her child is gifted, and a lot of elders, I don't think it was a lot, but some elders have pointed out that they notice and they believe her daughter's gifted. And you guys have heard me say this many times as far as like nurturing your children's spiritual abilities, and I'm still I still believe in nurturing it. But some of you might be thinking, how do I really know my child is gifted? Or is my child really being truthful about seeing ghosts or spirits in the house or other places? Well, to answer the question of whether or not you know your child is gifted, it's good to have confirmation and validation from other folks as well, because it's easy for us as parents to just say, yes, our child is spiritually gifted. But when other gifted people notice it too, that's stronger validation. And of course, if your child is able to tell you things that they should not know about, such as being able to predict events that's yet to come, and then the events do happen, that's another sign of knowing that your child is gifted. And if the child tells you that they see spirits of family members that's passed on, then and you can ask questions, follow-up questions, to see if it's really, the grandpa or the grandma that passed away. Then you can validate for yourself there too. So those are a few things that you can try out to see if your child is really gifted. There's no, as far as like my knowledge goes, I don't think there's any type of medical protocol to determine whether or not a child is spiritually gifted. The easiest way that I've found is to have validation from other spiritually gifted people. That's been the most convenient way for me. And I've seen gifted children myself, and I'm able to tell whether or not they're gifted. So yeah, if you think you have a gifted child, I do not mind doing a quick reading on your child. Just let me know. Send me an email or comment on this video. So the next thing is, when your child tells you that they are seeing a spirit or a ghost in your house or in other places, there are some questions that I ask my kids when they tell me that they see ghosts. So I ask them these type of questions to kind of screen them, in a sense, screen to see if they are really seeing what they're telling me. And I hope these questions will make sense and will be helpful to you. So one thing I like to do is I always ask them for description of what they claim to have seen. If they're able to give me detailed description of the entity that they claim to have seen, I don't think they'd be making that stuff up. Now, some people can argue, well, if they watch horror movies or they saw a clip of a horror movie, maybe they are associating that clip to what they claim to see. That's how they're able to describe it in detail. Well, yeah, of course you can have that argument, but not all the time, okay? Not all the time are they going to tell you about somebody who looks like Freddy Krueger or Jason or Michael Myers. I mean, if they're telling you descriptions of these characters on TV, it's pretty clear that they're associating it with memory of what they once saw on TV. But if they're able to describe the entities in such a way that children that age should not be able to describe, for example, this might sound creepy, but if they talk about how the face is burned, or there's no face, just glowing red eyeballs or green eyes, long hair, long fingernails, pale white skin. And if they go into those type of details, then I think they are really actually seeing something. So getting a description of what they see is the main point here, okay? The next thing is, ask how often do they see this entity. If they claim to see it every day and the description of this entity it doesn't change, then there's probably some truth to what they're claiming. And as you ask them how often they see this entity, you can also ask like when they see this entity. Is it usually at night? And then is it usually in a specific room or specific area of the house? And if they're able to be consistent with their answers, then again, it's very likely that they are actually seeing an entity. Now, entities can differ from good or bad, obviously, okay? So when my kids tell me they see ghosts or spirits, I follow up with, and after getting a description, I follow up the questions with, do they scare you? Does the ghost scare you? Or does the ghost talk to you? What does the ghost say? And I'm trying to pick up things like, the ghost is telling me to hurt you, Daddy, or the ghost is telling me to hurt myself, or to go steal stuff, doing something harmful, whether it's to themselves or others. Then that's a huge concern for me. In those cases, I would remove the entity as soon as possible, or do spiritual cleansing of the house as soon as possible to get rid of that entity. But if they say they're seeing angels, and now be careful, if they say they're seeing angels, do not just take their word for it right away, because some entities are pretty clever and cunning. They can they can manifest themselves into an angel, and so it can be very deceiving. So even if your kids tell you that they see angels, follow up with what does the angel say to you? Those type of questions, and that way you can get an idea of whether or not the entity is a good or bad spirit or ghost or entity. If the entity is not negative in any way, then I don't think there's any concern at all. Feel free to ask questions like, well, if you talk to that ghost or spirit again, you can ask, why do they show themselves to you, and why can't I see them? And then you can also see if it's, for example, I like to ask this question: what can that ghost or spirit or angel say about me, your dad? Can it tell you some things that you might not know about Dad? I mean, there's some things I've done in my past that I'm not proud of, so I'm hoping that the entity doesn't dig into my past and spill my beans that way. But hey, if that's what happens, then I guess I asked for it. But you guys get the idea, right? It's almost like getting a free reading, if you want to call it that. So you can certainly ask, what does this ghost, angel, or spirit say about Dad or other family members in the house? And again, if the messages are not disturbing, then I don't think there's any big issues about that. I wanted to just bring this up. My line of work, I read and review medical records pretty much daily. And I come across a lot of records that, have the diagnosis schizophrenia. And in these medical records, when I read them, I feel bad for the clients who, to say that they see and hear, they call it auditory and visual hallucinations. But a lot of the times these hallucinations, as the medical world calls them, are pretty positive. It's nothing bad. It's the clients will report that they hear their deceased grandmother talk to them, or they'll see their grandmother at night, or they'll hear and see their not cousin, but like best friends at night, the best friend that passed away. And there's nothing negative about the encounter. It's just they're reporting what they are experiencing, and people can call it paranormal or spiritual, whatever, but I don't see any danger in that. But in these cases, a lot of them are prescribed medication right away, and to me it's just unfortunate. So why do I bring this up? I want to bring it up because I don't want you guys to be too quick to make a premature decision on putting your kids on medication if what they're seeing and hearing is not harmful. All right? Because these medications that they take have bad side effects, and you can't just stop them. Stop the medications like do cold turkey on it. It's not going to be healthy for them either. So please be careful. But if your child is hearing negative messages from these entities, then I would strongly suggest that you take them to go see a psychiatrist or a psychologist to dig deeper into what's really going on. And of course, you can also bring them to see a spiritual advisor or a person, and maybe you can receive help from that angle as well. All right, so I hope that was helpful today. Leave me comments, and if there's any topics that you guys want me to cover that I have not covered yet, leave me some comments, and I'll do what I can to cover them in the next show. All right, folks. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.